Hi folks, Jennifer Nelson here, founder of Scout Real Estate. Glad you're listening in. I created Pocket Hours podcast to elevate our game and help us all learn from the best. I have interviewed some of the top producers in our industry about best practices, among many other things. We also tackle industry issues and changes with great conversation from many of our leaders. And the best part is you get clock hours just for listening in. After you have listened to 3 episodes, just email info@scoutrealestate.com to answer a few easy questions for the interview, and you will receive your certificate. Meanwhile, enjoy listening and learning, and go out there and be the agent you would hire. Hello, folks. Jennifer Nelson here with Pocket Hours, and today I got to speak with Paul Hoffman of Hoffman Reconstruction. Paul is a friend of mine that I've met a little while ago who runs a construction company that's different than most in 2 ways. One, Paul is extraordinarily responsive. I don't know if you've ever hired a construction company or a general for any work, but getting them to actually respond back to you is one of the biggest hurdles. And secondly, Paul is upfront about pricing and project scope, so that you're left feeling very empowered and educated to make decisions about going forward or going in a different direction. Among many things he says today, many other gems you're going to get from that, but that's a couple things that I took away from this interview. I'm excited for you to get to know Paul Hoffman with Hoffman Reconstruction. Paul Hoffman, I'm so glad that you are on Pocket Hours. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's a pleasure to be here, and look forward to our chat.
Yeah, me too. So for listeners, Paul and I met, we are both a part of BNI, Business Networking International Group, and Paul owns a construction company called Hoffman Reconstruction, and came to that networking group that we meet weekly with. And I thought, oh my goodness, after I heard him speak a few times, I thought I need to have him on the show. He works with realtors very often, and obviously with clients that need help with construction. So I'm just excited to kind of dig in and hear what you've learned and how you help other realtors who are the listeners for this podcast. So here we go. So Paul, how long has Hoffman Construction been around?
Hoffman Reconstruction's been here for about 10 years now. And we started out as Hoffman Building LLC. We now have a DBA that speaks a little bit more specifically to what we do, and we call that Hoffman Reconstruction. And this is a 3rd generation business. So I'm 3rd generation behind 2 other company owners who founded and then extended the business model. And I'm happy to be that 3rd generation carrying the legacy and the business model moving forward of taking care of our clients and serving the Seattle area with integrity and quality of work.
I didn't say the name right, but it's reconstruction. And tell me a little bit more about why that word instead of just construction.
That's an excellent question. It's one we get every now and then. Most people are just happy to hire us and move on. But when I get to tell the story, I really enjoy it. We were thinking about a name outside of building that would capture the essence of what we do. And so going through all the iterations of how to explain that concisely and professionally, we really had a couple of people helping me with that. And we really settled on the reconstruction, because oftentimes a lot of what we're doing is we are rebuilding with new modern techniques and building practices. A lot of what was done in the Seattle area during the big building boom after the Seattle fire in the early 1900s. So when it comes to taking a home that has got beautiful finishes, but it's got a foundation that needs to be rebuilt or reconstructed, or you've got a wall that's failing, that's 80 years old. Oftentimes we're taking something that's beautiful, that's got a lot of character, and we've got to gently or gingerly reconstruct that. Sometimes that comes with salvaging the original finishes, but most of the time it has to do with caring for the soundness of the home or the building site. And so reconstruction is a natural fit for us. And one thing I like about it is we don't have a lot of companies in Seattle that have that reconstruction, and so it kind of stands out a little bit. And that's really what led to us choosing that and moving forward with it.
I love that my mistake in saying your company name is exactly what you needed to say to talk about what you do. It's perfect. I love when mistakes turn out to be the thing we should talk about.
Happy accidents.
Happy accidents. I love it.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit, Paul, about how you have interacted with realtors and how you see the Hoffman Reconstruction business aiding people that do the kind of work that we do.
That's a great question, Jennifer. There's a few different ways we interact with real estate agents, and predominantly, we're usually called out to a home that has questions about how something looks or how something is behaving with the home. That is a symptom that is very common knowledge in the home buying world. Has to do with a crack in the foundation or a sloping floor or some cracks in the drywall on the interior finishes, a door that won't shut right. Some of these things that are the sticking points, if you will, unintended. Yeah. We come out and we evaluate the conditions of what is going on. And we use a number of factors to illustrate for our clients, not just our real estate agent contacts, but also their clients. We use a number of data points and illustrations, and we try to paint a picture of what the home was originally built to look like, how it's been affected by some of the extenuating factors, whether they be weather or lack of maintenance or site conditions, or just general building practices that weren't quite to our modern standards. We paint this illustrative picture and we try to empower our clients with the knowledge of what's going on. And then we tier an estimate system to meet those needs. Sometimes we go into these homes and we look and we say, hey, look, this is not an ongoing problem. So settling has occurred in the home. It's not active. There are no signs that it's continuing to settle. And so that sticking door or that sloping floor or the crack in the foundation is not a threat. You can buy the home with confidence, knowing that you've got some time to work on it. I love to come in and give that kind of feedback and give those results to the clients. There's very few times that you go into a home and there's an emergency level status that you need to respond with some kind of emergency action. So empowering our clients and being a resource for our contacts in the real estate world is really important to us. We don't want to paint a picture of fear. Even if it's a bad situation, we try to put a spin on it that's positive, that's, again, emboldening our clients to take the right action. Sometimes that means negotiating a little bit more aggressively or just reconsidering your options. And so that's the initial way and the predominant way that we interact with real estate agents. But sometimes we're just available. If a real estate agent has a client who is looking at a home and they say, we don't really need your services, but we're wondering, do you have a contact in this field or a contact in a specific remodel field or a specific niche market? We'll try to be a resource and connect people with the right contacts that we know, because we want ultimately people to be able to call us and leverage our expertise. We want that to be available. And so we think of ourselves also as a resource. And I think the third way is if people are going through a transition, whether that be they're buying a home, they're selling a home, they're remodeling, they need to refinance, and there's inspectors involved, there's a dynamic involved. That resource dynamic and that inspection that we offer can sometimes culminate as well in writing a letter to the underwriters, whoever's writing the loan on either the new home purchase or the refinance. We can take a set of circumstances that have been highlighted by an inspector and called out as a problem, and we can speak intelligently to that using data, using terms, using criteria that is on par with what an engineer would come out and do. But we're doing it at a fraction of the cost, and we have a lot faster turnaround time. And so when we write these letters to an underwriter for either a refinance or a new home purchase or the sale of a home, we're doing that and finding a lot of really good results, because people can recognize that this is very professional. We're unbiased in this. We're a third party, a neutral third party. And so we've been able to help our clients and their clients with moving through those processes expediently and with the right results.
I like it.
And that's really what it's all about. And I know that's what it's about for you as well. So serving our clients to get results is the approach.
I love it. You said something about I think you said a tiered estimate. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, as realtors, we're representing our clients, they're buying a house. we have an inspection, some things come up. This would be the time I could call Paul and say, hey, Paul, we need some expertise about really what they're walking into. We want them to be eyes wide open. And then they get there and they sort of are overwhelmed with, the amount of things that are coming up. So tell us a little bit about how you deal with clients at that particular junction. And then what does that tiered estimate mean?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Jennifer. We like to partner with real estate agents in this process and come alongside clients when they're feeling overwhelmed and be joint advocates with our real estate contacts for navigating and doing a little bit of handholding if necessary through that overwhelming process. The inspector's report that you get when you do a general inspection on a house, as you well know, they will oftentimes highlight things that require more attention, and then they'll have certain areas of the home that are less important to get to. But sometimes they don't know, and they're recommending someone to follow up and do an inspection. Whether we're coming out to speak to a larger issue that the general home inspector can't answer or can't respond with the right information to, or we're coming in and we're helping navigate this process of all this overwhelming data and facts about the home. Either way, we're looking to help put into simple layman terms what's going on with the home and then help people understand on an appropriate level and a practical level how we as professionals in this industry would approach this home if it was our home. And that's the key, because if you call out an engineer, they're responsible to bring in a 10x strength factor to anything they recommend. They have to be held to a certain standard in order for them to put their engineering stamp on a recommendation. If I come into a home and I recognize that something is off and it's only been built with 1.5, or 2 times the strength standard of what we would want if we're building it, I can recommend a long-term solution that is not necessarily to the level of an engineer, but it uses the same data and criteria. And I can tier a system that says, here's a 5-year approach to this problem. If we have active settling, I can give you a 5-year approach. If we've got multiple factors that's leading to home settling, for instance, or leading to drainage problems in a basement, I can say, okay, these are the contributing factors, and this is the most serious one. So if we can only afford to do half the project, let's do this one thing right now. It's what I would do if I had the budget and I was in your position. So tiering the estimate is really all about setting people up to know their options and then make a decision that's informed with their budget in mind and with their long-term goals in mind. It takes a little bit more care. It requires more of a personal interaction and a personal touch. And that's what we like about it, is that we like to set ourselves apart from our competitors, knowing that if you call the people that compete with us on a lot of these projects, they're sending out a salesman. And that salesman is getting paid based on how much money he sells per project. We don't do that. We charge about $100, depending on the area and the location and how long we're going to be out there for these inspections. And more than half of them, we come away and we're not recommending any work. But you've paid for our time and we've given you a lot of data and a lot of feedback. And oftentimes our clients are feeling confident, even if they're not going to take action on some work that we've proposed, they feel confident knowing the state of their home, and they can live in it with that confidence and feel good about it. And so that's what we like to do. We like to have that personal interaction, and when necessary, offer that tiered system so that you're aware of your options and you can get inside our mind to a degree. And again, leverage us as a resource, knowing what we would do if we were in their position.
I love that. And for listeners, I want to just say that maybe the obvious, but I'm going to say it anyway. And that's to say, we know that we hire, or our clients hire, inspectors. And to get an inspector license, you have to have just a smidge more than a pulse. And I mean that in the nicest way, but it isn't a ton of training. There's some there, and they're getting better at training inspectors, but their job as an inspector is to point out every default that they could ever think of to sort of CYA, if you will, so that they don't get sued later when someone says you didn't tell us. So the difference in bringing in Hoffman Reconstruction after an inspector is that they're not worried about being sued for not finding something. They're having a comprehensive plan to be able to say, hey, client, here's something that we would recommend you handle now. And here's what you could do, or here's something that you could handle over time, or here's something maybe in 5 to 7 years that we could handle for you. And this is $100 is a damn cheap price to be able to get that much information. And like you said, Paul, it's leveraging someone else's professional eyes that isn't hired to come in and just find all the defaults, but instead has the remedy, sort of has the here's what we could do and here's how we could do it. So I love that. Give us, if you will, and I'm going to ask you on the spot, kind of a story that you helped a client in a similar situation like this with a realtor.
Absolutely. And I think you put that masterfully. I don't think you could have explained that any better. It's very concise and very representative of the dynamic involved in the home purchasing world. There's a particular story that I really like to tell, and I don't mind being put on the spot for this one. This is a client that was going to buy a home, and I believe it was in Sunset Boulevard. It had an incredible view, and if memory serves correctly, she was buying it from out of state. Now, the real estate agent called us. We came out, we followed up on the inspection, and I had a phone call with her, and I said, here's the deal. No one's going to tell you this, but you can't get insurance on this home. Mm-hmm. The homeowner who owned the home, owned it outright, was a long-term owner. I believe they were, in fact, the ones who had even built the home originally. So this was a home that was 60, 70 years old, and either they or their parents had built the home, and it had always remained in that family. Well, there was problems with the surrounding area, and the site conditions were such that it was classified as an environmentally critical area, an ECA. There's about 50 different ECA classifications, and the city of Seattle has on their website a tab that you can draw down and search your lot, look up if any part of your home location or your building site has any of those ECA classifications. Hers did. And so we just did a quick cursory search. And I said, I believe that it's going to be very difficult, if not almost impossible, based on where your house is located and the site conditions involved, that if you pursue this and you buy it, you can probably buy it with cash, because that's what she wanted to do. She wanted to put a cash offer in. But you're not going to be able on the back end to probably get insurance based on this criteria and this criteria and this criteria. She did some searching. She called her homeowners, her homeowner's insurance company, and verified that, yes, it was in fact going to be almost impossible. So we saved her from purchasing that home. Now, that wasn't good, but before doing that, I had a conversation with the real estate agent. I took her aside and I said, look, here's the situation. I think this is the case. I want to break it appropriately, and I want to save you from being the bad guy on this purchase. And so we were able to work it out, and she ended up buying a different home, still in the Sunset Boulevard area. We did the inspection on that one, and as far as I know, it's been about 2 years, and she's very happy in that home. Another wonderful view, but she's also got homeowners insurance. And so if anything happens to the house, she's covered. Fire, flood, damage, she's going to be covered and taken care of in that situation.
Well, and I love that story. And one of the reasons, Paul, is that when realtors that are listening to this, when you bring in an expert like Hoffman Reconstruction, after they've hired an inspector, what you're showing the client is that you care beyond your commission check. So, right, you're saying, I want you to be informed. I want you to know everything about this house, and to have the person that you brought in say, by the way, I think you're going to not get home insurance, and have saved you from getting into a really sticky situation. You're the hero, and you're doing your job, by the way, which is kind of baseline. But to be honest, there's not a lot of realtors that do this kind of stuff. And so getting on your team, Hoffman Reconstruction, to say, hey, client, I care about what happens long-term for you. I'm not just trying to get a commission check, get a sale. I want you to be the most informed. So I dig that. That's a great story. Very cool. Pocket Hours is brought to you by Scout Real Estate. Hi, I'm Jennifer Nelson, owner at Scout Real Estate. I started this firm with the vision of doing things differently, with our focus on legendary service for our clients and creating a community of producing agents to spur each other to do higher quality work. If you are interested in learning more about how a small group of like-minded brokers have come together to have some fun while doing a lot of business, reach out to me, 206-227-7966, or email jennifer@scoutrealestate.com. I promise you this, fun is a high priority for me, but so is winning. So if you appreciate those two things, you might be interested in Scout. Looking forward to hearing from you.
That's one extreme end and a really neat story. Most of the time on the other side of the spectrum, we're going into a situation like the one I'm going to tell you about now. And we're called out of the blue, and a client is buying a home and they say, we've got all this feedback, and the home inspector is very concerned about a crack in the foundation, and they're very concerned that the corner has settled, and we don't really know what to do. This is our first time buying a home. We have no experience with this. And the home inspector made it sound like there's some real serious issues. That's a common occurrence. And in this particular account, we responded. I came out to the home and I take my probe and I probe into the ground, and I can withdraw a sample relatively easy. It takes about 1 minute. And I can figure out the PSF, the pounds per square foot of the bearing soil that the foundation is sitting on. So we look at that. We look at the stormwater management system. Where is the water going when it's raining on your home, when it's raining on the site? Where is it being directed? Is it being safely removed from your foundation? We look at the building practices. How was the foundation constructed? And we saw that in this particular setting, it was poured concrete, but it didn't have rebar. And this was a beautiful craftsman home. Well, yes, we have a crack. And yes, we have a little bit of settling, but we go in and we say, look, I know you have an estimate from one of our competitors, and they're saying the foundation has no rebar in it, and you're sitting on 1,500 PSF, it's just sand, and they're telling you that this is going to be an ongoing problem. I'm going to tell you right now, the house was built in the 1940s. I can tell that by looking at it, all the finishes and the building practices and whatnot. And I can tell you the settling occurred within the first 20 years of the home and has not been active. And so we point to various data in the house. This was patched in 2001, and it hasn't moved since. The crack hasn't gotten any bigger. We can show that the 3/4 inch that's settled is not active, and extrapolate that over the 80 years that the home has been around. We can point to the soil. I have a soil sample, and I do these random soil samples around the foundation. And I can show you that this is not going to be an ongoing problem based on the math, based on the data. And we can let everyone know as well that the crack in the foundation was not a major catastrophe. What most people don't know is that concrete is going to crack. And we were able to explain to the client that even when concrete has rebar in the foundation, it's going to crack. There's these things called expansion contraction joints. It's a living material. And so in this particular set of circumstances, we had a little bit of a crack, and then the settling occurred in that area, but we don't have any offsetting. We don't have any displacement. We don't have any reason to believe that this is actually anything more than a little bit of minor settling. And so that crack is superfluous to the integrity of what the foundation is doing, which is bearing up the home. And so in that instance, we said, do a little bit of seismic retrofitting. But beyond that, there's no emergency here. Every home is susceptible, of course, to the anomaly of an earthquake. But in your case, this is a single family rambler, one-story home. And so you're not going to have a catastrophe. Your house might bounce off the foundation, but you're not going to have a catastrophic failure in the foundation, because the foundation is doing what was originally designed to do, which is bear up the home. And this is a minor problem in comparison to the bigger picture, to the larger issue at hand. And so that really set them free from the burden of carrying this worry and this doubt that this was a solid home. We showed them it was well built. We pointed out all the features and functions and tried to allow them to take their eyes off of the tiny little problem and look at all of the good that this home had to offer and truly appreciate it. And so eventually they did a little bit of seismic work. We corrected the corner of the foundation. And I believe bolting the house to the foundation in this case and lifting up that corner and securing everything, I think it cost about $15,000. And now everything's perfectly level. They feel good. It's better than it originally was. And that house is going to stand for a long time.
I love it. That's such a great story. And I don't know, listeners, I'm going to say this out loud. I don't know if you're hearing what I'm hearing, but what I'm hearing from Paul is that you have a guy like Paul or someone from his team come into your house and start using the words that he's using around this stuff, I feel taken care of. I feel like someone knows what they're doing. Someone's not being catastrophic and alarmist and sort of, oh my gosh, we have to fix this stuff. They're not finding problems in your house in order to make a buck. They're an established company and they care about relationships. And so what that means is there's a long-term plan, right? It's like you have a roofer come out and they say, of course you need an all new roof because it benefits them to have another job, right? We don't want those people. We want the Hoffman people to come in and say, hey, this isn't wrong. I wouldn't fix that if I were you. Here's the problem. Because they know, they have understood from a business standpoint that gaining that sort of trust, then when there is an issue and you can call it an issue, you want to call Hoffman because they're not going to take advantage of that, which I totally love. So Paul, if you could talk just for a minute about on the listing side. So a lot of the realtors that are listening to this call are going to be people that list homes regularly, and they might do a pre-inspection before putting it on the market and find some things wrong with the house. So some of them they're going to want to fix, and some of them they're going to want to have bids for to hand to the next buyer to say, hey, we've done so much work to get this home ready for market. We're going to stop here, but here's somebody that could fix this for you after you buy it. Have you been doing that kind of thing before, and how have you seen that work?
That's a great question, Jennifer. And yes, a lot of times we have been called on site and there is a pre-inspection done. We really like to see people do that because it's a proactive move. I know that's why you are putting that out there. It's very wise. If the listing side is not in a hurry to liquidate or to move, or there's no kind of emergency, it's a very wise step. It's very prudent to do all of this and walk this out. And we've been called many times out to these homes. And what I love about participating in those conversations is we can speak to those issues in the same way that we were just illustrating, but also we can help people to understand what might make the most sense financially. And this is where I really enjoy working with real estate agents as well, because we allow them to take the lead. We want them to be spearheading this conversation, so to speak. And so oftentimes when I get called, I like to have a chat on the phone for 5 minutes and just say, okay, so, how is your client doing? What kind of mindset are they in? Where are they at? So that I can be a partnering alongside the direction that you as the expert are leading them in. And so I can go into that conversation. We can go on site and we can say, okay, I know the boundaries within what I should be working within. And I know where your mindset is at. And now I can speak according to your direction and help partner with my feedback, my data, and we can get this client into the best position possible. Sometimes that means doing the work beforehand. Sometimes that means just recommending the work be done. Other times it's just writing a letter that no work needs to be done. And we're happy to put our stamp of approval on this, and here's why. And so when we do those inspections, we might charge a little bit more if it's going to be a long letter explaining all of the dynamics and the conditions, like we would if we were writing it to an underwriter. But again, we know that that is an excellent tool and resource, and oftentimes saves the trouble of having to go through this process on the back end after you've listed it.
I love that so much. For realtors listening that know about like a roof certification, I keep talking about roofs right now. I'm just in the middle of a roof situation in my own business, so it's fresh on my mind. But kind of like a roof certification, it takes a lot for a company to be willing to sort of stick their neck out and say, I'm going to write a letter saying that here's where I think this house is, or here's what's happening. What a stamp of confidence that you can give to your seller. And therefore, then when you're selling a home to the buyer, to say, here's a really reputable company that has come in and, basically said, here's where we think this house stands. And even if that letter includes some language around, hey, in 5 to 10 years, you might be, interested in talking with us about this issue. It says that professional eyes have looked at this home and have given some sort of evaluation that's worth something. It is, in my opinion, far better than an inspector doing their checklist. Of course, do your inspections. I get it. Everybody needs one of those. Mostly because we've trained them to have one. But nonetheless, get your inspection. But boy, if you could add listing agents to that, comprehensive report from Hoffman Reconstruction, what an added benefit to both the seller and buyer. I dig that. That's really cool. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
Is there anything else you think would be good for realtors that are listening to this call to know about you or your company? You've shared such great things already. I so appreciate your time, but what else?
we've spoke a little bit about the seismic retrofitting, and this is an aspect of my industry and my niche that I'm very passionate about, because I think there's a lot of people who could benefit from some of the insider feedback, if you will. We've walked out several times meeting with clients who are very concerned about earthquakes in Seattle. They've seen the San Andreas fault line and some of the stuff that's happened in California. They know about the Juan de Fuca plate line that we have about 175 miles west off the coast. They're aware of that. They know that we're kind of off the plate line, but still nevertheless in earthquake country, if you will. And I get this question a lot from real estate agents and from clients alike, general clients. What should be my approach to seismic insurance, earthquake insurance, or retrofitting my home? And I wanted to put some information out there by way of just being helpful and offering this to the community, that in my experience, most of the time, what you are going to pay to use your earthquake insurance after an earthquake is not necessarily conducive to being the right call. If we experience a magnitude 4 or 5.0 earthquake, which is about the one that we experienced in 2001, you're going to see a little bit of minor damage on the cosmetic side, but you're going to have to pay $20,000 if you want to use up the rest of your earthquake insurance. You want the insurance company to pay. Most of the time, the bill to fix those finishes is less than that premium you have to pay. Oftentimes, with these older homes, it makes a lot more sense to do a seismic retrofit. And what that means is simply bolting your home to your foundation, maybe doing a little bit of shear wall innovations and upgrades. But it doesn't necessarily mean going through the checklist of everything that an insurance company is going to want you to do on one of these older homes in order to qualify for earthquake insurance. There is a threshold at which it becomes financially unviable, and it's not worth putting that money into. And that threshold is, if we have a magnitude 8.5, 9.0 earthquake, the hillsides start to move and things start to shift, the ground starts to shift. Who cares if your home has met all these conditions, because the whole ground and the whole hillside's moving a little bit.
Yeah.
And so if you are riding on top of your foundation and moving down the hill, you can do that for a lot cheaper than meeting the threshold of your homeowner's insurance. And at that point, things are so bad that's probably, one of the last things. I don't even know if the homeowners insurance agencies are going to be able to pay if it's that bad. And so there's that financial threshold of mitigating your risk, but doing it in a way that is cost effective and makes sense. And oftentimes that means simply bolting your home to the foundation and ensuring that if we experience what is more common, which is a 3.0 to a 6 or 7.0 earthquake, that you don't have to pay $50,000 for it to be reset back on its foundation and all your utilities hooked up. If you pay $10,000 to $15,000 ahead of time, you save yourself that cost, you save yourself that risk. And we're not the only company in town that offers these services. There's a lot of companies, they just specialize in them. They just do that exclusively. There's an appeal to that. We do it as well, but this is the kind of information and the feedback we want to give to our clients to empower them to make the best decisions possible.
I love the candor. And I also have thought earthquake insurance is kind of, there's many words I can think of about it, but a little bit of a ripoff. I don't know. Can I say that on my own podcast? I think I can. And for those of you that have it, feel free to keep it. There's no judgment here. But I will say that I love the option to say, gosh, let's look at the data and not be scared into this and not have insurance companies make yet again more money from us when we could have been doing it differently. So I dig that. I also joke, I live in a 50s house and I have a bomb shelter, like a bona fide bomb shelter. Paul, you got to come see it. It's pretty fun.
Oh, I have to. Yeah.
We joke about it because we're like, okay, this thing has been excavated out. It's got a steel door. It's got, it is like really, they were really scared anyway. And we thought, well, let's say you go down there and you make it through the atomic bombing. And then you come up to absolutely nothing, right? You come up to nothing. You're like, thank God I'm alive and no one else is. Right. We just joked about just the amount of fear that people were having. But all this to say, maybe not as extreme of circumstances, but we do need to think about great alternatives for our clients that don't involve them paying. I mean, earthquake insurance is really off the charts financially. So gosh, the money you're going to spend even in a year to pay for that insurance, instead of spending that same money getting your home retrofitted.
Yeah. So the other thing I would say is I love to share the knowledge again. And this is another topic that I'm passionate about, and that is people thinking about how to maximize their homes. We've seen a huge shift since 2010 in the amount of people who are coming into Seattle. And there's been a tremendous amount of, I would say, the rate of increase of people doing detached additional dwelling units, DADUs, as well as ADUs, or creating additional living space so that they can have 4 people renting a home, or they can just have someone, a mother-in-law suite for another renter, or whatever that might be. There's been a big increase in the amount of flow through the permitting process that we're seeing, a large demand. And I think at one point we were at 10,000 people a month coming into the Seattle area at the peak. What all that tells me is that there is a large demand for additional living space in the Seattle area. And so my thoughts that I want to share with you as a person who's in this field at the moment is that there are pros and cons to how you approach that. And oftentimes there's a lot of people we find that are not aware of how easy it is to put a basement unit underneath a home that doesn't even have a basement. Maybe they only have a crawl space or a slab on grade. Maybe they have a partially finished, a 5 or 6 foot tall basement. But we found that many of our clients are unaware of how easy it is to add that additional square footage, that living space into that area. It's untapped potential. And most people are thinking about this by going sideways or going up. They want to either lift their home and put another unit underneath, or they want to rip off the roof and add another level, or they want to go out sideways. And we like to illustrate to our clients that there is another alternative option that is just as cost effective and in many ways provides benefits that go above and beyond these options. And that is that basement dig out option. We've put garages underneath people's homes. We've put bomb shelters as well underneath people's homes. We've put mother-in-law suites. We've extended the living space down with staircases down. You can create a home office. One of the benefits you get by doing that is you can occupy your home during that entire process. If you're going to go sideways and you're going to add an addition, or if you're going to rip off the roof, there's some measure of intrusiveness into your home. You're changing your life. You're altering your day-to-day. Something is now going to be obstructed in throughout this process. When you dig down your home and you put a basement underneath, occupy that home, most of the exterior finishes are going to be completely undisturbed. So if you've got a beautiful craftsman and you don't want to alter it, or you're worried about that addition and the siding and the windows not necessarily matching up, these are things now that you don't have to worry about. That you can add that space below the house, occupy the home, preserve all of the finishes, and you also can create a natural separation between the living space and that additional square footage you're getting if you want to. It makes for an excellent, like I say, mother-in-law or ADU you can rent out. That's becoming a popular option, but a lot of people aren't aware of it. And so, I just like to put that out there for consideration. Is oftentimes the square footage price matches up with going up or going out. And it might be a little bit more, but what you get by paying a little bit more is usually your foundation at that point has been upgraded. So those extra concrete walls, extra structure that's going in, all that has now been upgraded, and your home is that much more stable in addition to the square footage you're getting. So I would just want to wrap up with that and just say that that's something that we're finding more people are seeing the wisdom in, but it's certainly not necessarily common knowledge in the industry yet.
I love that. And while you're at it, you might as well do that seismic upgrading. I mean, if they're down there working on all that, I'm sure you just go ahead and add that in. And boy, DADUs and ADUs are absolutely coming alive. And what a great way for providing a space for your aging parents or your kid that hasn't quite launched or launched and came back. And not to mention even renting it to a student or something, however you wish to use it. They're super smart investments. So I love it. Well, Paul, I can't tell you how fun this has been to talk to you. This has been really great. And I'm so excited to get the news out. I mean, you're already such a great business, been around a long time doing awesome work, but to get you in front of more realtors was my goal today, and to have them have you as a resource, which is an incredible resource to have. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's an honor for me. It was a pleasure talking with you, and all good things. I appreciate it, and best of for the future with your show. You do a tremendous job, and you're an excellent host.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening in to Pocket Hours. I hope this has been interesting, fun, made you laugh, made you think, spurred you on to do and implement some new things in your business. I appreciate your time and hope this has been a good use of it, period. Now, go be the agent you would hire.